Hey, Takashi, how do you feel today?
Me dan 3 meses para perder peso.
¿Sientes que fue justa la sentencia del juez?
Sí, 12 meses de supervisión.
Takashi, do you feel the judge was fair
¿Esperaba más?
today?
No.
¿Qué le puede decir? ¿Sí cree que fueron
Justo?
Sorry.
3 months in federal prison. That's what Judge Paul Engelmayer just handed Tekashi 6ix9ine on December 5th, 2025, and nobody saw it coming. The rainbow-haired rapper walked out of Manhattan federal court knowing he has to report back January 6th. But what shocked everyone was what the judge said during sentencing. This situation involves Daniel Hernandez, who cooperated with the feds in 2019 and keeps violating his supervised release. Here's what actually went down. Let's start from the beginning.
Now under orders to report to federal prison in Brooklyn next month to serve 3 months behind bars. His legal name is Daniel Hernandez, and he was sentenced today on parole violation charges. The court found that he skipped out on a Las Vegas performance without permission and was late to a court appearance and failed a test. Tekashi had been sentenced several years ago in a racketeering case.
To understand this, you gotta know where 6ix9ine has been since 2019. We're talking about a 29-year-old from Brooklyn who shot to fame in 2017 with Gummo. Back in November 2018, federal agents arrested him alongside 5 other people on racketeering charges related to the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods.
Brooklyn rapper Tekashi 6ix9ine is in federal custody facing racketeering and firearms charges. Law enforcement sources say the rapper, whose real name is Daniel Hernandez, was arrested this morning. Several of his former associates were also taken into custody. The arrest comes less than a month after the rapper was sentenced to probation in a sex crimes case.
On November 18, 2018, the feds came through and grabbed him along with Kafano, Shadi Jordan, and 4 others. The charges were serious. We're talking racketeering, weapon possession, conspiracy to commit violent crimes. These two used to be cool, 6ix9ine and the 9 Trey crew. He testified that his role was to keep making hits and be the financial support for them. In his own words during testimony, he said he got street credibility, protection, and his career in return. But that relationship fell apart quick when he got arrested. On February 1st, 2019, 6ix9ine made the decision that would change his entire life. He flipped. He pleaded guilty and agreed to cooperate fully with federal prosecutors.
Brooklyn rapper Tekashi 6ix9ine pleaded guilty to federal charges, admitting he participated in a violent gang. He also pledged to cooperate with prosecutors. The rapper, whose legal name is Daniel Hernandez, said he joined the 9 Trey Blood gang in the fall of 2017. He says he helped them try to kill a rival gang member last March.
The deal was simple. Testify against his former crew and avoid a minimum 47-year sentence. And testify he did. Starting September 17, 2019, he took the stand for 3 days straight in Manhattan federal court. During that testimony, he detailed everything: the gang structure, violent incidents, and even dropped names of other artists he claimed were affiliated with different crews. His testimony helped convict Anthony Harv Ellison and Aljeremiah Nuke Mack in October 2019. They're both facing life behind bars. On December 18, 2019, Judge Paul Engelmayer, the same judge who just sentenced him again, gave him 2 years in prison. With 13 months already served, he was looking at less than a year left. But here's where it gets interesting. In April 2020, during the height of everything happening globally, Judge Engelmayer let him out early to home confinement. The reason? 6ix9ine has respiratory issues, including asthma, which made him vulnerable.
Fastest kid in the world, but the asthma is kicking in.
I got you. That's something for you.
What you got me? Oh.
So don't come here talking about you failed jail.
Yo. This is an actual asthma pump?
Yeah.
He finished his 2-year sentence from home and was officially released in August 2020. That's when his 5 years of supervised release started. 5 years where he had to follow strict rules or face going back inside.
You know why people so mad? Cause they thought it was over for me. They counted me out. Oh, you ratted, it's over for you. I'm a living legend at the age of 24 years old. Look at these 1.6 million. Shout out to Tory, shout out to Drake, shout out to Bad Bunny.
From day one after getting out, the situation turned personal for him in ways most people don't see on social media. Other rappers went at him hard. Snoop Dogg posted on Instagram calling him out compared to Martha Stewart, who did her time without cooperating. The game trolled him relentlessly. But it wasn't just online. It got physical in the real world too. Now this is when things really popped off. Between 2020 and 2024, 6ix9ine tried to rebuild his career while living under constant supervision. He had rules: report travel, stay away from certain people, submit to testing regularly, and stay out of trouble. For a while, it seemed like he was following them, but that didn't last. In November 2024, the first major violations came to light. Federal prosecutors in Manhattan charged him with 5 separate violations of his supervised release. According to court documents, he traveled to Las Vegas without permission. Then he went to Sarasota, Florida, also without clearing it first. He failed to comply with testing requirements twice, and when he finally did get tested, he came up positive for methamphetamines. On November 12, 2024, he stood before Judge Engelmayer and pleaded guilty to all 5 violations. The judge was already frustrated with him. The sentence? 45 days in federal prison plus another year of supervised release tacked on. Judge Engelmayer told him straight up that his actions suggested he believed ordinary rules didn't apply to him. 6ix9ine served those 45 days and got out in late December 2024. But that's not even the craziest part. Within weeks of getting out, he caught another case. On March something in 2025, we're talking just weeks after finishing that 45-day sentence, police in Palm Beach County, Florida, raided his Miami home. What they found inside wasn't good for someone on supervised release. Officers discovered small amounts of controlled substances. Specifically, they found substances at his residence. According to federal prosecutors, this violated his supervised release terms immediately. 6ix9ine didn't deny it. When confronted with the evidence, he admitted to possession, but he wasn't done catching violations. The tone shifted completely in August 2025 when things escalated quick at a Florida mall. On August 8, 2025, at the Palm Beach County Mall in Wellington, Florida, a confrontation went down that would add another charge to his growing list.
He just singled me out. Like, yo, bro, if you wasn't with your family right now, you f***ing right, I'ma kill you. I said, what? And when I'm leaving right behind, bro. Like, they trying to say I follow him, but I'm really trying to leave the mall. Like, if you see the transcript when I just went to court, when they smacked the ankle monitor on, they said I followed him. Mind you, he called me a rat and then called the cops. So we packed him out. He took out his gun. You know, he could have killed us.
According to prosecutors and court documents, a man at the mall recognized Daniel Hernandez and started taunting him. The man called him out for cooperating with federal authorities back in 2019, essentially calling him a snitch to his face in public. What happened next is where 6ix9ine messed up big time. Instead of walking away, he and another person allegedly confronted the man. Court records say they knocked the victim to the ground, then started hitting him repeatedly. The beating only stopped when they realized the man was armed with a weapon. At that point, they fled the scene immediately. When 6ix9ine appeared in federal court in September 2025, he pleaded guilty to misdemeanor battery. He told Judge Engelmayer directly, "Me and another individual hit a person, and I was wrong." The judge wasn't playing games this time. He ordered Daniel Hernandez placed on home detention with an electronic ankle monitor. He had to stay at his Florida residence, except for religious services, medical appointments, mental health treatment, legal meetings, and court appearances. Assistant U.S. Attorney Jonathan Rebold pointed out to the court that this was the 3rd time in just 1 year that 6ix9ine had violated his supervised release. Federal prosecutors filed their sentencing memo in November 2025, and they weren't holding back. They argued that 6ix9ine was acting like his cooperation in 2019 gave him immunity from future consequences. They specifically said his behavior showed he believed cooperators were above the law. The government requested a sentence between 3 and 9 months in prison. Things escalated quick in the legal world once prosecutors filed their recommendations. Jay Clayton, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, addressed the situation directly in court filings. He acknowledged that taunting Daniel Hernandez for cooperating was unfortunate, but made it clear that this would likely keep happening. Clayton stated that 6ix9ine needed to learn to walk away from situations like the mall incident moving forward. 6ix9ine's lawyer, Lance Lazaro, went toe-to-toe with prosecutors over the recommended sentence. Lazaro argued for 6 months of home confinement instead of prison time. His reasoning? The amounts of substances found were very small, and the mall victim didn't suffer serious injuries. Lazaro also pointed out something real about Daniel Hernandez's prison experience. He always serves time in complete isolation from other inmates because of safety concerns. The lawyer argued that segregation was much more severe and difficult than regular incarceration. On social media, the reactions were mixed, but mostly not in his favor. Hip-hop fans and other artists had been watching this pattern develop for years. Twitter went crazy every time news broke about another violation. Some people felt he brought it all on himself by cooperating in 2019. Others pointed out that he keeps making the same mistakes over and over despite getting chances. But here's what most people missed. Daniel Hernandez had been documenting incidents of harassment for years. He told anyone who would listen that life after cooperating wasn't what people thought. According to him, he faced constant threats and confrontations everywhere he went. The most gripping moment came on December 5, 2025, when Daniel Hernandez stood before Judge Engelmayer for sentencing. Before the judge announced his decision, Daniel Hernandez gave what can only be described as an emotional speech, laying out everything he'd been through since 2020. He started by telling the judge, "I don't think you have all the facts." Then he launched into a detailed account of nearly a dozen incidents where he faced threats, harassment, or violence because of his cooperation. 6ix9ine recounted specific moments that painted a picture of constant danger. Shortly after his release in 2020, he said, "Restaurants started kicking him out when he tried to eat there. People threatened to fight him in public spaces. At a UFC event in 2021, someone threw a drink in his face. After a performance somewhere, he got punched in the back of the head." He mentioned getting thrown out of places just for showing up. He even claimed someone left a coffin at his doorstep as a threat. In a gym locker room, he faced another confrontation that turned physical. For each incident, Daniel Hernandez held up papers and printouts showing documentation of what happened. His voice was shaking as he told the court, "Each scenario, I walked away. How many times do I have to walk away for you guys to see it's a pattern?" He got real about the toll all of this was taking on him mentally. "Mental health is a real thing," he told Judge Engelmayer directly. "Just give me a chance to get my life back together." He also brought up how the situation affected his career, claiming that music executives had basically put him on a banned list where he couldn't perform at venues. The judge listened to everything but wasn't fully convinced by some of the arguments. Judge Engelmayer specifically called out something that bothered him. Back in August 2020, right after getting released early due to respiratory health concerns and vulnerability, Daniel Hernandez was seen dining at restaurants. The judge found it troubling that he cited health risks to get out early, then immediately started going to public places where he could catch what he was supposedly afraid of. Engelmayer said directly, "You had no business going to all those meals in August 2020. But the judge also showed some understanding. He acknowledged he couldn't imagine the constant stress of being known as a cooperator. For that reason, Engelmayer ordered that the new year of supervised release Daniel Hernandez would face after his 3-month sentence would include mandatory mental health treatment, specifically focusing on anger management. Judge Engelmayer's frustration with Daniel Hernandez was clear throughout the December 5th hearing. Multiple sources in the courtroom reported that he called the rapper's situation a complete mess, specifically using the term that one probation officer had used to describe the case. The judge pointed out that despite resources being thrown at helping him comply, he kept violating terms. "You've been throwing resources at him, but he's still a complete mess," the judge said, according to Inner City Press, who was covering the courtroom. "You have repeatedly violated your conditions and the court's trust." The judge went even further, telling Daniel Hernandez directly, "From time to time, your actions suggest that you believe that ordinary rules don't apply to you." He explained that another prison sentence was necessary to send a message, not just to Daniel Hernandez, but to show that cooperators aren't above the law. Judge Engelmayer also referenced Daniel Hernandez's pattern of behavior. He noted that the rapper seemed to take 2 steps forward, then 1 step back consistently. The judge called it a serial pattern of violations that would weigh heavily in any future hearings if Daniel Hernandez appeared before him again. But that's not even the craziest part. Despite all the frustration and harsh words, Judge Engelmayer revealed something surprising. He had originally planned to give Daniel Hernandez more than 3 months. The judge said he was moved by the emotional speech and by reports that Daniel Hernandez had been making progress with his court-ordered therapist. That's what led to the 3-month sentence, instead of something longer. The final terms were laid out clearly. Daniel Hernandez must report to prison on January 6, 2026. He'll serve 3 months behind bars. After release, he'll be on a fresh 12 months of supervised release, meaning if he violates again during that year, he could wind up right back before Judge Engelmayer. The judge also made a recommendation to the Federal Bureau of Prisons that Daniel Hernandez serve his time at a Florida facility rather than the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, though that decision ultimately rests with the prison system. Caught everyone off guard when Daniel Hernandez walked out of court and immediately started talking to TMZ. In footage that hit the internet hours after his sentencing, he showed zero concern about the 3 months ahead of him. Daniel Daniel Hernandez told TMZ Hip Hop that he wasn't worried about his looming sentence in January. He explained that he expects to be housed in a secure unit away from the general population because of his cooperation history. When asked about safety concerns, he said he'd never been harmed in prison before and doesn't think it'll happen this time around. Then he said something that got people talking. Daniel Hernandez admitted he's pretty out of shape right now, sitting at 190 pounds. His plan? Use the 3 months in solitary confinement to lose 70 pounds and get down to 120 pounds. His method? He claims he'll only eat 1 box of Oreo cookies each day. Whether that's a realistic or healthy plan is another question entirely, but that's what he told reporters. He also said he felt the sentence was fair, explaining that the judge got to hear all the facts from his side. Daniel Hernandez carried the same energy outside the courtroom that he'd shown inside, neither one backing down from his position that the circumstances around his violations matter. The immediate aftermath on social media was intense. Within hours of the sentencing, clips from the courtroom and Daniel Hernandez's TMZ interview were going viral across every platform. Hip-hop Twitter was having a field day with reactions ranging from jokes about the Oreo diet to serious discussions about the consequences of cooperation. But here's what most people missed about this whole situation. There's a business and money angle that doesn't get talked about enough. When Daniel Hernandez cooperated in 2019, he walked away from potential deals and relationships that were worth millions. His cooperation meant burning bridges with people throughout the industry who viewed what he did as unforgivable. The financial impact has been massive. Before his arrest in 2018, Daniel Hernandez was one of the hottest names in hip-hop. Feffy, with Nicki Minaj, hit number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. His album Dummy Boy debuted at number 2, despite leaking early. He was pulling in hundreds of thousands per show. After cooperating, that all changed. Major venues won't book him. Other artists won't collaborate with him. Radio stations largely stopped playing his music. Daniel Hernandez mentioned in court that music executives had essentially put him on an industry-banned list. Whether that's an official thing or just the reality of how people in the business treat cooperators, the effect is the same. He can't make money the way he used to. That's millions of dollars in lost earnings from touring, features, and mainstream exposure. There's also the legal costs to consider. Between lawyer fees for multiple court appearances, the $35,000 fine from his original 2019 sentence, and the ongoing costs of compliance and monitoring, Daniel Hernandez has spent serious money on legal issues over the past 6 years. Sources close to the situation say the constant legal troubles have affected his ability to plan long-term. He can't commit to tours or album rollouts when he might end up in court or in custody at any moment. That instability makes it hard for any label or business partner to invest in him. The power dynamics in hip-hop shifted completely around him too. Before 2018, Daniel Hernandez was calling shots, making waves, and building momentum. After cooperating, he became someone the industry could ignore or distance themselves from without consequences. Nobody faces backlash for not working with him. In fact, many artists make it a point to publicly say they wouldn't collaborate with him. The psychological toll of constant harassment shouldn't be underestimated either. Mental health experts who've spoken about cases like this, not specifically about Daniel Hernandez, but about cooperators in general, point out that living under constant threat creates serious stress and trauma. That kind of pressure can lead to poor decision-making, which might explain some of Daniel Hernandez's choices that led to these violations. When you're always looking over your shoulder, always expecting confrontation, it becomes harder to make rational choices in heated moments. The legal system doesn't always account for these circumstances. Judge Engelmayer acknowledged that he couldn't imagine the stress of being a known cooperator, but at the end of the day, the law is the law. Supervised release terms don't have exceptions for harassment or difficult circumstances. You either comply or you face consequences. That's the reality Daniel Hernandez is living with. There's also a generational divide in how people view his situation. Younger fans, especially those who came up during his peak in 2017-2018, sometimes show more sympathy for his position. They see someone who made a choice to avoid decades in prison and is now paying a different kind of price for that choice. Older heads in hip-hop tend to have less patience for what they see as repeated poor decisions and a failure to learn from mistakes. The culture around cooperation in hip-hop remains deeply complicated. On one hand, there's the street code that says you never cooperate with law enforcement under any circumstances. On the other hand, there's the reality that many people face impossible choices when confronted with lengthy prison sentences. Daniel Hernandez's case sits at the intersection of these conflicting values, making him a lightning rod for debate about what's acceptable and what isn't. As of of today, December 6, 2025, Daniel Hernandez is out on supervised release until his report date. He has exactly 1 month until January 6, 2026, before he has to turn himself in to begin serving his 3-month sentence. During this time, he's still under the ankle monitor restrictions from his September home detention order. Just yesterday, the story was still developing across social media and news outlets. Major publications from the New York Times to TMZ covered the sentencing. The hip-hop community reacted across platforms, with most responses ranging from "told you so" to concerns about the cycle he's stuck in. Word is that once he's released in April 2026 after serving his 3 months, he'll be starting another year of supervised release with new conditions. This means mandatory mental health treatment, anger management, continued monitoring, and all the same restrictions he's been struggling to follow. If he violates during that year, he's right back in front of Judge Engelmayer, and the judge made it clear there won't be much leniency left. People are still watching to see if Daniel Hernandez can actually make it through a year without catching another violation. His track record suggests it won't be easy. He's violated multiple times in each year since 2020, but his lawyer and supporters argue that with proper mental health treatment and better support systems, maybe this time will be different. The bigger question hanging over everything is whether Daniel Hernandez has any real career left to come back to. In the month before he reports to prison, will he try to drop music or content after he gets out in April? Will any platforms give him a chance? Can someone who's been labeled a cooperator and keeps catching legal trouble ever rebuild in an industry that values street credibility? What started as a single racketeering case in 2018 turned into something that's changing how we look at cooperation deals in hip-hop. Daniel Hernandez's situation shows you the real consequences of flipping on your crew. It's not just about doing less time. The social consequences, the career impact, the constant threat level, and the inability to escape your past all factor in. This case also highlights something about the justice system's expectations for supervised release. When someone cooperates and gets out early, the government expects them to stay completely clean. Judge Engelmayer made that clear. Cooperating doesn't earn you the right to mess up later. Every violation chips away at whatever goodwill the cooperation created. For other artists watching this play out, Daniel Hernandez's story serves as a cautionary tale about multiple things: joining crews for street credibility, cooperating with law enforcement, and the difficulty of following strict supervised release terms while trying to maintain a public career. His situation demonstrates that fame and legal problems create a toxic mix that's hard to escape. It also shows how the industry can completely turn on someone. In 2018, Daniel Hernandez had major artists willing to work with him. By 2025, he's basically on his own fighting legal battles without the support system or opportunities he once had. That's a 7-year fall that speaks to how unforgiving hip-hop culture can be toward cooperation. The precedent his case sets matters beyond just him personally. Other artists facing federal charges will look at his situation and see the full picture. Yes, cooperation can reduce your initial sentence, but the aftermath might not be what you expect. The supervised release period becomes its own kind of prison, one where any mistake sends you right back to actual prison. So that's where we're at with this whole situation. Daniel Hernandez got 3 months, has to report January 6th, and faces another year of supervised release after he's out. Judge Engelmayer made it crystal clear that if there's a next time, the consequences will be much worse. The judge even said directly, "If you come back before me, there will be another sentencing. Keep your eyes on what happens between now and January 6th. Will Daniel Hernandez try to drop any music or make any moves before going in? What about when he gets out in April? Will he come back the same way he did in 2020, trying to take over social media and get back in the spotlight? Or will this time in prison change his approach?" Also, watch how the hip-hop community responds over the next few months. Will anyone show him support, or will he continue to be isolated? Does he have any path back to mainstream success, or is he permanently stuck on the outside looking in? This situation shows you how federal supervised release really works in practice. It's not like regular probation. The terms are stricter, the consequences are federal prison time, and judges have long memories. When you cooperate, you might get out early, but you're on a tighter leash than ever before. One mistake can send you right back, and Daniel Hernandez has made multiple mistakes every single year since 2020. The pattern is clear at this point. The question isn't whether Daniel Hernandez will face more legal trouble. Based on his history, it seems likely. The real question is whether anything will actually change this time, or if we'll be covering his next violation in 2026 or 2027. Let me know what you think about this whole situation in the comments. Do you think 3 months is fair given everything that happened? Does Daniel Hernandez deserve sympathy for the constant harassment he faces? Or did he bring it all on himself by cooperating? Can he ever rebuild his career at this point? Or is he done in hip-hop? Drop your thoughts below. If you want to stay updated on this story and other hip-hop news as it develops, make sure you're subscribed to the channel channel and hit that notification bell. More updates coming as this situation continues to unfold. We'll be covering what happens when he reports to prison in January and when he gets out in April. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.